Postseason begins tomorrow. Obviously, you guys only had, I think, 5 days between Sunday and now. Are you happy with the work you guys did in just refining those tools ahead of tomorrow?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, at this time of the year, I've said this before, we can tweak a couple things, and you're getting ready to play teams for a third time. So, everything's I shouldn't say most things are going to be exactly the same in some ways. You can only change so much at this time of the year, but just trying to incorporate maybe some little adjustments that you can make based on what you've seen from, and the games might be played totally opposite than the way they were played. So mostly it was just about us fixing us.
How is this prep before the Big East tournament different than prep before the NCAA tournament?
Well, you don't have to play 3 games in 3 days. You don't have to play somebody for a third time. You lose Saturday, Sunday, or Monday, the season is over. So there's some stress, but I think there's a lot less stress that goes into this. Knowing that there's more basketball to come after this, regardless, win or lose. When Dee was here the other day, we were talking about, she was giving Sarah some great advice. Don't forget, we won a national championship twice after losing in the Big East tournament. So just like typical Dee, just something for you to think about. I think this tournament is obviously really important to every team. It's certainly important to us, and I think we want to win it. We want to win it as much as we ever have. So we just go and do our thing and see if we can win 3 games in 3 days.
How are Dee and Tina with the kids? Are they nice to them, or are they hard on them?
Oh, I don't know. They just breezed through here. They walked through. I don't even think they didn't do anything. I don't think you could get those two to, not at this time of the year anyway. No, they just rode by like the Queen of England, just gave us a wave and off they go.
Season like this, is it hard to keep them, make sure they stay on the track, or keeping the team humble?
That's usually not hard, I think it gets, February usually gets difficult when you've been at something for a long time and you still have, a whole month to go or half a month to go. But I think generally, by the time this time of the year comes around, there's a lot of excitement. There's a lot of, anticipation of, hey, this is tournament time. So, it's been really, the last couple of years especially, it's been really, really good. This group, they've done it too. We've got a lot of players that played last year. So I think it was good.
Last year, you guys had this sort of looming motivation of wanting to send Paige out with a championship, wanting to end the drought of championships. Do you have to look for a new way to kind of find that edge this year without something like that?
I don't think so. I've said this a lot. This is the NCAA tournament. You're playing to win a national championship. This is the Big East tournament. You're trying to win a Big East championship. If we have to sit down with you and, hey, listen, we need to add some extra motivation to this, then that's probably, I never approached last year, win one for, this is win one for Paige, I think those other guys wanted to win one for themselves too, it's not just, so I don't know that there's a defining thing, whatever that is this year. I don't think we have a theme for either this tournament or the next one coming up. Yeah, that's kind of why I'm anxious to see, kind of how it goes. Because they're they're gonna have to kind of put their own spin on it.
This year that surprised you, like you knew how talented
Yeah,
she
how
was?
sloppy she is. That really surprised me. But I kept saying to the coaches, I said, I don't know why I'm constantly surprised at how sloppy she is, because she's only a freshman and they don't practice like this over there. They don't, you know, it's not, the intensity level isn't like this over there. There's a lot more laissez-faire, you know, kind of like, hey, it's okay, you know. And so I think the things that she did from an offensive standpoint or defensive standpoint, I can't say I wasn't surprised, but some of the things made me, and maybe it's a bad attitude on my part, that I'm thinking to myself, you played a lot of basketball, way more basketball than the average 18-year-old kid. So I should be able to expect you to be perfect. And that's not fair to her. That's not fair, you know, by any stretch of imagination. But then when she starts doing some things that she does, and you know, and after every game, people that see her for the first time, oh my God, Blanca, 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 you know. So I guess the expectation was so high. And even within that, there were things that she did that make you go, man, there's not a lot of players that can do that at her age. So, yeah, some things surprised me, and I guess some other things did not.
This is the only time of the year where you play back-to-back games, unless you're in an NTE earlier in the season. What does just the turnaround look like between games? I mean, you probably don't get time to sit down and watch a film session of the opponent.
We try to do that. I mean, tomorrow morning, you know, we'll watch film at Georgetown, like we did today, and play the game, and then find out who wins. If we win, who we play next, and the next morning do it again, and go to shoot around and take a little bit of time that you do have to kind of reinforce some things, and then hopefully do it again on Monday. So yeah, the one benefit of playing teams for a third time is, you know, their personnel, they know you. There's not, you know, like for instance, we're sitting there going, hey, you know, Georgetown, they only make like 6 threes a game or something like that. Yeah, well, they got 4 in the first quarter against us, something like that. So, you know, you kind of go back and think about things that happened that maybe you prepared differently this time. But otherwise, you know, our preparation is kind of the same. Routine is the same. We have the same routine for everybody.
Geno, how does the way your team, the way it's progressed and developed, how does that line up with how you hoped it would have progressed and developed, maybe at the beginning of the season or once you were a little bit into it?
I was going into the season thinking there's so many things I want to find out. You know, what's the reaction of the guys that came back from last year? You know, what's their attitude? What's their, you know, how are they going about their business coming off of being national champions? How will the new guys blend in? You know, how can we fit them in seamlessly? Can we get all the things that we expected to get? How soon will that show itself? And it went way better than I thought. Way better than I could have envisioned. You know, everybody seems to have fit in pretty easily, and things have gone, I think, better than expected. You know, if we had whatever we had in February, you know, I'm surprised we didn't have a couple of those in November, a couple in December, a couple in January. You know, so I think for the most part, it's about as good as I could have hoped, really.
Obviously, you guys were practicing while Georgetown won today. How do you go about looking at that game and presenting it to the players?
Well, before we started practice, we knew they won, so we knew what we were up against, and you know, and then tonight and tomorrow morning we'll watch some film, and the players will get a chance to watch some film, and then go play. And as I said, at this time of the year, yeah, you know, if we were playing a team that we didn't know anything about, that we had just found out we were playing them this morning or yesterday, but that's not the case, you know. So at this time of the year, everybody's playing for their lives, and I talked about this with the team. Some teams are playing this weekend knowing if they don't win the tournament, their season's over. Some are playing like, if I get a win or two here, we could sneak into the NCAA tournament. And some are playing because they know they're in the tournament and they want to make sure they're ready for the NCAA tournament, NCAA championship. So everybody's got, I think, something to play for, and you just got to expect everybody's best shot, regardless of who you're playing. Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, it went better than I expected, because I didn't expect all those early season games to go as easy as they went. You know, I didn't expect to go down and play Louisville and have happen what happened, or Ohio State and have what happened, or Iowa. You know, you expect those games to, like, anything could happen, and, you know, you're going to have to grind out a win, and it's going to be really difficult because they're really, really good teams. So I didn't expect us to play that well against those teams. So that surprised me. But I think every time we played one of those games, and every time we played as well as we played, I think our confidence just kept growing and growing. And, you know, the trick was then to keep it going in that direction, which is probably harder than actually, you know, getting the confidence you need. Is keeping it.
For Blanca and Sarah Williams not having been through a postseason like this is going to be before, is there a new learning curve at this time of year for them?
I'm sure there is. I'm sure there is. You know, I don't know the last time Sarah Williams has played 3 games in 3 days. That actually means something, you know, so I don't know. But she looks good. She's had, you know, maybe that St. John's game was a real shot, you know, for her, because she's had a couple really, really good days of practice this week. And Blanca, you know, ignorance is bliss, they say, right? She don't know anything about anything. She just knows we have 3 more games, and she knows we have a game tomorrow, and then after that, you know. But she's interesting in the sense that she approaches every game without any previous. She doesn't bring anything with her. Let's put it this way. So let's say she plays lousy on Wednesday. She's going to play really, really good on Saturday. You would not know that she played lousy on Wednesday. Now, if she plays great on Saturday, and then you play again on Wednesday, like, that doesn't carry over either. Like, it's not like a given that she's going to come and play amazing the next Wednesday. So for her, she kind of leaves everything behind. So I think she's just going to roll into these games and, you know, go about it the same way she's going about everything else. I mean, yeah. Yeah, I mean, yeah, she's different. She's different.
Do you think that you guys get the respect, like, that you deserve? I mean, you went undefeated, but like you said, like, things went really well. Like, it's almost like it was too easy. Like, but people are saying, like, oh, the other conferences have better teams.
Yeah.
The SEC. Do you think like you had you're undefeated, #1 in the country, but do you think people, like, you're getting enough credit for how good you are? Or
I don't know. I mean, I don't really, I don't really get into any of that. I think we've been dealing with this for a long, long time. You know, we played in a league that wasn't anywhere near what the Big East is the whole time Stewie was here, for the most part. And we heard the same stories over and over again. And those turned out pretty good, you know. So I don't think it matters who you play. I think it matters how you play, and I think it matters, you know, more than who you play. It's who you, or how you practice and how you prepare. So, yeah, like, I don't ride around with a bumper sticker saying we were undefeated. You know, I don't really put a lot of stock in that crap. I just try to make sure that we're better every game and that we're good enough when March comes to be ready for whatever comes. And we've been undefeated and we won national championships before. And we've been undefeated and we've lost in the NCAA tournament before. So, you know, winning all your games in the regular season, that's great for everybody to talk about or criticize or applaud, whatever you want to say, but when it comes right down to it, it doesn't really mean anything.
But for you to say it went better than expected, like you could be like, oh, we're undefeated, but if we don't fix this, this, and this is gonna be
Well, that's all,
a rude awakening. Like,
yeah, that's
you're-
always the case.
You're not saying that. You're saying like,
No.
wow, that went pretty
No,
good.
that's
like,
all I said it went
so-
pretty well. I
Yeah.
didn't say it's going great.
Right.
Right, those are two different things.
Now, speaking of,
There's a lot of other stuff, that's just the surface. Below the surface, there's a lot that needs to be taken care of. But that's our job. Otherwise, we wouldn't have practice. We would just show up for the games and go, hey, look at this looks great. But that's not the case for anybody. I don't care who it is. You know, there's always things. And even if they've gone better than expected. I mean, there's a lot of teams out there with one loss. How are they any different than us? Or how are we any different than, well, we beat a lot of really good teams in our league. Well, good. That's what you're supposed to do. You know, and then you have people talking about, hey, we're an NCAA tournament team. Really? You're 14 and 13. You're lucky you made your own conference's tournament. Well, we play in a real hard conference. Well, as I said this before, you should play in a different conference if you can't finish in the top 5, 6, or 7. I coached in leagues where we had 9, 10 teams go to the NCAA tournament. And we finished undefeated in those leagues. So what, people are gonna say that was lousy? No, well, the game wasn't that great then. The game's grown since now. Really? No, it's not. The same teams that were really good back then are really good right now. And the same thing is true now that was always true. You play in your conference for a reason. It's like, you know, this is my neighborhood. Well, I live in a tough neighborhood. Well, then you should move. And you'd have an easier path. Right? I mean, or you should live in the neighborhood you live in and figure out a way to fight your way out of it. Who gives you a right to play for a national championship when you can barely finish 500 in your own league? Isn't the national championship a reward for having a great year? It's not a reward for playing in a great conference. And some conferences, what was their record last year in the NCAA tournament? Go check it out. Go check out what their record was in the first and second round. Just saying, I'm not accusing anybody of anything. I'm just saying, I just think sometimes people put too much stock in, you know, what conference you're playing in, what your record was, you know, against who you played against and all this other stuff. I mean, there's some mid-majors out there, I don't even know what conference they're in, but I guarantee you, you don't want them showing up in your gym in the second round. I don't care who you are, UConn or anybody else. And you probably couldn't name 3 teams in that conference. But come middle of March, you don't want them in your gym. And you certainly don't want them on a neutral court. I've been there, I know that. When we were playing in 1991, when we were playing in the Sweet 16 in Philadelphia, we showed up and, you know, there's like NC State and Clemson. And you're going like, what in God's name are we doing in this tournament? And they looked at us like, who are these guys? So there's a lot of really good teams in this country. But the one thing they all had in common, they all had a great year in their conference. And they get rewarded by playing in the NCAA tournament. So we don't need any 4 and 12 teams in their league to play in the NCAA tournament. Otherwise, then you should let every team play in the NCAA tournament. Well, we're a postseason team. Well, you already had your postseason. You're playing in the conference tournament. That's your chance to get into the NCAA tournament. And I would say that no matter what league we're in. Because I have said that no matter what league we're in. I just don't, you know, the narrative, you know, that these people come up with. We're an NCAA tournament team. Well, the committee will decide that, I guess.
going back to Georgetown, AZ's mom's getting recognized by the Big East on Saturday.
Yeah.
What do you remember about his coaching against her, and do you see similarities in either her as a player and AZ?
No, there's absolutely no comparison between AZ and her mom. Katie was more like Shay. She was more like Shay Ralph. Like there's some battles there that, we had because she was relentless competitor, tough, hard-nosed. Yeah. AZ is a little bit different. She has a different approach to the game, and but maybe the same competitiveness for sure. But their games are way different.
Was
Way
it weird
different.
to go through the recruiting process with AZ, knowing you had coached against her mom, and now her daughter
Yeah.
was going to be with in your program?
I know. Yeah, I mean, it happens, when you're around long enough, I guess you get to see anything. I never thought I'd be coaching teams coached by kids that I recruited, like Denise Dillon, so when you're around as long as I've been around.
All the different ways that affect the game collectively, do they do about as much as two headlining players can do for a team? And maybe, I don't know how they might line up against other, you've obviously had a couple of superstar tandems on some of the teams.
Yeah, we've been very fortunate that, you don't get all this by coaching bad players, so we've had multiple good players play together on some really great teams. The big thing you look for is, do they complement each other, and do they make each other better, and that's certainly the case with, both AZ and Sarah, they're exactly what you need them to be when you need them to be that. Sometimes together, putting on a show together. Sometimes they take turns individually within the game. But no, I mean, and every team, says, the players that I have are the best players, especially if you're a top 5 team. And I would say, these two are as good as we could hope for. I don't know that we would be better if we had 2 separate players or 1 of each or whatever. But this combination works great for us, and it works great for their teammates.
It's pretty cool this time of year, because people who may not be the biggest basketball fans or follow it too closely will tune in and catch a tournament games. Now, who's the best team? Probably UConn. Who's the best player? Maybe this kid thug, maybe this kid's strong. It's kind of like take another step into the spotlight you've earned, so to speak.
Yeah, I think sometimes people that, not sometimes, but a lot of times people that don't follow regular season, everyone follows the tournament. I mean, people will bet on whether the sun comes up tomorrow, so there's a lot of reasons why people follow sports these days. But when the tournament comes, everybody's excited. Everybody's got their card filled out. Everybody's, got their favorite teams. Everybody's got who they hope is upset special, who they hope gets upset. Everybody weighs in, whether your team is in it or not. This seems to be the one thing that if you're a basketball fan, you kind of get wrapped up in it. You get sucked into the whole thing.
Talk about having things you still want to find out from this weekend, or you want to see how they respond to. I guess just kind of what are you hoping to learn from the Big East tournament?
Nothing. Seriously, I kind of know my team. I know who we are. I know what we're capable of. I know what we're good at. I know what we struggle with. And maybe we come out of these 3 days with 3 wins and we win a conference championship. And, like I tell the players all the time, when you go into a conference tournament, regardless of who you are, and then you've won the regular season, you're kind of like, okay, well, we already won the league. Now what? Now we got to prove it again. 3 more days. Kind of silly when you think about it, right? You just want to go out and say, can we build on what we've done? Can certain players, adapt to tournament play? This will be for some of our younger players, this will be their first win or go home kind of thing, So you just want to see that. And I remember for as many years as I can remember, I always used to think, and it's happened so many times, that whoever is the player of the year, for the longest time there, never won MVP of the Big East tournament. because there was just so many good players in the tournament, and you had enough players to win the regular season back then, that somebody comes out of nowhere and just blows up for 3 days and gets MVP, you know? I remember when Ice played when Leah Edwards broke her nose, like she came out of nowhere and had like the tournament of her life. So, you know, you go out and say, okay, who's gonna be that person this weekend?